After 6 years of quietly loving her from the shadows, Victoria, the CEO, the woman I gave up everything for, finally agreed to let me meet her parents. It should have been a milestone, but instead, she didn't come home that night. The next morning, she walked into the office like nothing had happened, smiling, glowing, with a fresh hickey on her neck, and Derek Shaw, her ex, by her side. They laughed like they were the only two people in the world, like I didn't exist, like the 6 years we shared had never happened. I stood there, frozen, as whispers spread like wildfire. "Isn't that the guy who's been hanging around the CEO?" someone muttered. "Probably just another pretty boy she's keeping around." Before I could even defend myself, Victoria snapped. Her voice was sharp, rehearsed. "Ethan is a top graduate, personally recruited," she said, her tone dripping with authority. "If you can't keep up, don't resort to gossip." That was the first blow. The second came seconds later. She walked straight up to me, eyes cold. "Your performance has been slipping," she said flatly. "Step down. Let Ethan take over your projects." And just like that, everything we'd built was dismissed with a shrug. I had been there from day one. The late nights, the early mornings, the scrappy startup days when no one believed in us. I was her partner in more ways than one, and now I was being told to step aside. For a stranger with perfect hair and a smug smile. Ethan turned to me, voice calm but laced with condescension. "Sincere helped build this company. It's understandable that he has some pride, but I doubt he's willing to be my subordinate." Victoria scoffed. "Pride? What's he got to be proud of? Without me, he wouldn't have even made it through the door with that associate's degree." And that's when I realized she wasn't just cutting me out professionally. She was rewriting the past, discrediting everything I'd done, dismissing the sacrifices I'd made, how I dropped out of school for her, worked double shifts to pay her tuition, how I put my own dreams on hold to build hers. She knew all of it, and now she was weaponizing it. But instead of shouting or defending myself, I just stood there. Something inside me had already broken, and what replaced it was silence. That's when I walked to the printer and handed her one sheet of paper by resignation, but she called my bluff, laughed, scoffed. "Once you walk out that door, don't come back." I turned, I walked, and for the first time in years, I felt free. I laughed quietly, bitterly in my head. I had agreed to take a step back, sure, but not like this. Not to be humiliated, not to be cheated on. Victoria didn't just stay out all night. She showed up the next morning with a hickey on her neck and Ethan trailing behind her like some shiny new toy. Then, she actually had the nerve to tell me I'd be assisting him. The guy didn't even know where the coffee machine was. I wasn't just heartbroken, I was insulted. Victoria, always dramatic, stomped her heel like that would fix everything. "Cheating? Are you serious? There's nothing going on with Ethan. Stop being so jealous." I didn't even get the chance to answer. Right on cue, Ethan appeared, polished, apologetic, fake as ever. "I'm so sorry. Sincere," he said, voice dripping with performance. "I didn't realize you were quitting out of jealousy. We were just out with a client. I got drunk. Miss Vance was just helping me out. There's nothing between us." Then, just to twist the knife, he tilted his head and revealed it. Angry, red scratches trailing down his neck. He knew exactly what he was doing. And for a second, the old me almost came back. The one who would have made a scene, demanded answers, made her swear she'd cut him off for good. But not this time. Version of me had died a slow death over the years. I had nothing left to argue with. Victoria grabbed my hand, trying to sound soft, reasonable. "You're just emotional, that's all. We've got an important dinner with a client tonight. I need you there." Okay, of course. She only chased me down because she needed something, not because she missed me, not because she cared. Then I noticed Ethan was wearing my shirt, the one Victoria gave me on our 3rd anniversary, the one I rarely wore because it meant something. Now it was wrinkled, reeking of smoke, with a cigarette burn on the sleeve. A shirt I'd once cherished, reduced to an afterthought. She kept. Negotiating like this was a contract. "If you're that upset, I'll promote you both. Equal titles, how about that?" I looked her in the eyes for the first time and said calmly, "Promote whoever you want. It has nothing to do with me." Confused, her voice sharpened. "What does that mean?" "It means I'm done," I said. "With the company, and with you." She froze. "What did you say?" I took out my phone, right in front of her. I blocked her number. Do I really need to explain what we're breaking up means? Victoria's composure cracked. "You dare break up with me? After everything, didn't you want to meet my parents?" Oh, now she remembered. "Yeah," I said, my voice dry. "I did yesterday, the day we spent months planning for, the day I sat at home alone with wrapped gifts while you wrapped yourself around Ethan, at some bar." She flinched. Still no apology, no guilt, just rage. "We're not rich. We haven't made it big yet," she snapped. "You know my parents prefer my brother." I couldn't show up with nothing to my name. I was stressed, so I blew off steam. "What's so wrong about that?" I almost laughed. "Nothing. You do whatever you want. It just won't involve me anymore." Ethan stepped in again, acting noble. "You're making assumptions." Miss Vance and I have nothing to hide. She looked at him like a lifeline, then turned back to me with wet eyes and trembling shoulders. The tears, the dramatic scene, her old, familiar weapon. But it didn't work anymore. I'd seen this play too many times. The crying, the guilt, the manipulation. And every time, I caved. Not this time. I turned around and walked away. She screamed my name like it was the end of the world. But at WASN, single quotes, it was just the end of us. Because I only compromise when I love, and I didn't love her anymore. I went home, cleared out everything that smelled like her, looked like her, reminded me of her. Then I messaged my best friend overseas. I was just about to catch up with Cam, ready to finally start that import-export venture we always talked about when my phone rang. Hello, is this Mr. Sterling? The voice was calm. Too calm. We're calling from St. Luke's. Your father's medical bills have been overdue for over 2 weeks. We tried reaching you, but we had to stop his medication a few days ago. He passed away that same night. I stopped breathing. Passed away? No, that couldn't be right. My father was everything to me, the only family I had left. After that car crash years ago, he'd been in a coma. Machines and wires were keeping him alive, but I'd never given up hope. Every penny I earned went straight to that hospital account, automatically. No gaps, no mistakes. So how could this happen? Then came the truth, like a punch to the chest. The hospital's access to the funds had been cut off, frozen, half a month ago. There was only one person with the authority and the audacity to do that. Victoria. The pain was so sharp, it stole the air from my lungs. I didn't even remember hanging up. Another call came through this time, a number I recognized. I answered it, my voice hollowed. It was her. Smug, cold, cruel. Did the hospital call you? She asked. If you want your account unfrozen, you'd better get back here and apologize. My body trembled. This woman I had loved, built a company with, sacrificed everything for, had let my father die, just to punish me for disagreeing with her over a hiring decision. I buried my father alone, arranged the cremation, chose the urn, and when I laid his ashes to rest beneath a nameless tombstone, all that remained of the strong man who raised me, was silence. When I walked back into the company, I wasn't the same person. Victoria barely looked up. I knew you'd come back. Next time you pull a stunt like that, I'll have you start in the mailroom. Ethan handed me a file like he owned the place, like I hadn't built it brick by brick. Proposal for the meeting, he said smugly. One glance told me it was a disaster. I didn't even acknowledge it. I walked straight into the boardroom. Victoria and Ethan followed, talking tactics as if I was just a pawn they could position. But I wasn't here to play their game anymore. I slapped a shareholder separation agreement on the table. Victoria's eyes narrowed. What is this supposed to be? I helped build this company. I said, it's partly mine. I never asked for my share because I loved you. But that's over. I'm here to collect what's mine. Ethan stepped in like a loyal mutt. You're trying to sabotage this just because Mr. Hayes is here. You're trying to hold the company hostage. I didn't flinch. Do you even know who Cameron Hayes is? Victoria rolled her eyes. Of course. Forbes list, self-made empire. Why? Right then, the assistant knocked. Mr. Hayes is here. Victoria smirked. This has nothing to do with you anymore. You want to break up? Fine. You want out? Fine. Just don't come crawling back when we land this deal without you. She snatched the pen, signed the agreement, with theatrical flair, and barked at security, get this ex-employee out of my sight. I raised a hand. No need. I can walk out on my own. But I didn't walk out because right as I turned, he walked in. Cameron Hayes. And the moment he saw me, his entire face lit up. He pulled me into a hug like it had only been yesterday. I've missed you, buddy. Victoria froze mid-smile. Mr. Hayes, she stammered. You know him? Cam laughed like she'd just asked if the sky was blue. We grew up together. He's like my brother. I had to come see this woman who kept him from moving overseas with me. I grinned. We broke up. Her face cracked. She'd mocked me, humiliated me, frozen my account, let my father die. And how she realized the man she threw away was the only connection she had to the biggest deal of her career. Cam glanced at Ethan and Victoria. He'd heard it all. Their whispering, their insults, their betrayal. But he said nothing. He didn't need to. He was here for me, and for the first time in months, I felt something warm break through the numbness. Not revenge, just peace. Ethan, desperate to salvage whatever dignity he had left, cleared his throat and stepped forward. Mr. Hayes, he began, trying to sound confident. Since you're already here, shall we go over the proposal? Victoria chimed in, smiling tightly, silently begging for this to go smoothly. I said nothing, just stood there, watching. Cameron glanced at me, caught my eye and smiled. But not the warm kind. It was that kind of smile that looked friendly but felt like frost. Still, Ethan, clueless as ever, took it as a win. He shot me a smug look that practically screamed, see, you're not that special after all, and then he opened his mouth. To be honest, Mr. Hayes, Ethan said, with mock sincerity, Sincere here was fired by our CEO. His professional abilities just weren't up to standard. So, if you're serious about this partnership, maybe it's best we speak without unnecessary distractions. The moment he said it, I knew. He'd just stepped off a cliff and hadn't realized he was falling. Cameron's jaw tightened. Substandard professional abilities, he repeated, his tone shifting. Victoria's eyes widened. She tried to cut Ethan off, but he was on a roll. Yes, and not just that he's overly ambitious. Miss Vance gave him another chance, but he stormed out like a child. Cameron started clapping. Slowly, 1, 2, 3. Bravo, he said flatly. I didn't realize a non-public company like yours was too good for someone of Sincere's caliber. Good thing he's not applying for a general manager position at my firm. That would have been an insult to his abilities. Ethan grin died mid-smile. Victoria jumped in. Mr. Hayes, please, don't mind him. Ethan's new here, he doesn't know what he's saying. I'll have him apologize immediately. Cameron let out a short, cold laugh. You brought someone this unqualified to negotiate with me. That's your team. He stood, dusting his hands. Then I don't see any point in continuing. Panic crossed Victoria's face. Wait, please, there must be a misunderstanding. But Ethan, digging his own grave, looked right at me and snarled. Did you say something to him behind our backs? That was the last straw. Cameron's voice turned ice cold. Don't blame your own failure on others. Maybe try reading a book. Learn something before you open your mouth next time. The silence that followed was brutal. Victoria looked like she wanted to disappear. Ethan wilted. I nodded slightly, accepting their awkward apologies, not out of forgiveness, but because watching them squirm was more satisfying than shouting ever could be. Back in the conference room, Ethan tried to bounce back, speaking fast and loud like he could fool experience with volume. Victoria watched him, visibly impressed, but Cameron just toyed with his thumb, ring a sign I knew well. He was done pretending. Ethan's numbers were inflated. The pitch was all flair, no substance. Cameron, who knew the game inside and out, had been silently clocking every single flaw. Finally, he'd had enough. He tossed the proposal onto the table like it was trash. If this is your company's idea of sincerity, he said coldly, then there's no deal. Victoria stood, eyes wide. Mr. Hayes, please, what's the issue? But Ethan couldn't stop himself. Did someone poison you against us? Is that what's going on here? That did it. Cameron's voice sliced through the air. You think someone needs to sabotage you? Look in a mirror. You're the only reason you're failing. You're incompetent. And worse, you don't even know it. I didn't speak, didn't have to. Cameron turned to Victoria. Be careful, Miss Vance. Don't mistake fish eyes for pearls. You'll realize too late what they're really worth. Still, Victoria defended him. Still, forgave him. Some people fall for illusions, and others choose to live in them. So I left with Cameron at my side, and I didn't look back. They thought they'd just lost a business deal. What they didn't know was this was the beginning of the end. In a final act of stubborn pride, Victoria approved Ethan's ridiculous influencer campaign. It was flashy, expensive, and unsustainable. The company wasn't public yet. It didn't have that kind of capital. I said nothing. Instead, when their product hit peak buzz, I dumped all my shares. Cashed out big. With that money, Cameron and I started something new. Something real. Then came the call. Victoria's voice, drenched in sarcasm. If you were smart, you'd have kept your shares and taken dividends. But your vision is small. This is as far as you'll go. I smiled. Is that so? She sneered. I bought every share you sold. I'm the biggest shareholder now. You have no stake left. You're nothing. I glanced at my bank balance, a long string of zeros, all your cash, tied up in stocks. I asked, you should check the news. Confused silence on her end, then screaming, sincere, dare you. I hung up. Quiet, and scrolled through my phone like it was any other day. Because I don't do schemes. I don't play petty. I hit where it hurts. And I never miss. Just like that, the final blow landed. I had leaked every rotten truth about Victoria's company, years of failed quality checks, the tax evasion, all of it. One by one, the influencers and celebrity endorsers bailed, each demanding compensation in numbers that could bankrupt a giant, and as the scandal spread like wildfire, her empire crumbled. Stocks that had been soaring days ago plummeted 20 points overnight. She would have survived maybe, if she hadn't gotten greedy and bought back my shares at a ridiculous price. But greed has a funny way of showing up right before the fall. Now, she was drowning. Her calls came day and night, from new numbers each time, desperate, panicked, but every time I thought of my father's face, my chest caved in with hate. So I let the phone ring. And I blocked her again. Then, at the height of the media storm, I dropped one last truth bomb, a leaked account of our 6-year relationship. How she'd hidden me, used me, discarded me, and right after that, a knock. At my door, I peered through the peephole. There she was, not the glamorous CEO I once knew. She was still in designer clothes, makeup painted on like armor, but the shine was gone. She looked hollow, I didn't open the door, but she knocked. Again, more hesitant this time. So I opened it, and the moment our eyes met, her tears came like clockwork. Are you happy now? She sobbed. You destroyed everything. Then, like some tragic heroine in a play, she tried to fall into my arms. I stepped aside without a word. She stared at me, stunned. You did all this to prove I can't live without you. Well, fine, I'm here. What more do you want? The delusion would have been funny if it wasn't so pathetic. I looked her in the eye. What makes you think I'd ever want a woman who betrayed me? Her voice rose. I told you it wasn't like that with Ethan. I laughed, quiet and dry. Betrayal isn't just about the body. It's emotional too. And every time he snapped his fingers, you were there. Our anniversaries. That night I had to go to the hospital. You left me to pick him up from a bar. You chose him again and again. Don't pretend now. Her voice softened, almost pleading. Then why did you tell the world about us if you didn't still love me? I stared, not because I was stunned, but because I finally saw her for what she really was. I didn't do it to win you back, I said. I did it to bury you. I pulled out my phone and held it up to her face. Headlines screamed across the screen. CEO Victoria Vance dumped secret boyfriend of 6 years for intern. Ethan Thorne's academic fraud exposed. Victoria Vance, a CEO who can't tell pearls from pebbles. The comment section was brutal. She shook with fury. You want to drag us both down? For what? Revenge. Her voice cracked. What did I ever do to deserve this? I nodded slowly. You really want to know? I grabbed her arm and pulled her inside. In the center of the living room, hung, beneath the gentle light, was my father's memorial portrait. She stopped breathing for a second. Isn't your dad still in the hospital? She asked, her voice suddenly small. I didn't answer. I slapped her hard. You knew he couldn't survive without that ventilator. You froze my salary. You blocked my access. You changed the emergency contact on his file. He died waiting for a medicine drip that never came. You killed him. Her face turned white. I didn't know. I didn't mean to, she stammered. I was just so angry back then. I didn't think it would matter if I held payments for a while. I didn't know he'd die. Not a single word of apology. Just excuses. Always excuses. I hated myself for ever loving this woman. For not seeing what she really was. Tears ran down my cheeks. Not from sadness, but from disgust. She looked scared now. Sincere. Please don't be like this. You're scaring me. I clenched my fists so tight my nails bit into my palms. You're scared now? Where was that fear when my father took his last breath alone? I dragged her out, shoved her into the car, and drove. We didn't speak. The wind howled outside the windows as the city blurred past, and then we were there. The cemetery, my father's grave. She was shaking as I stared down at her. Need me to show you what to do? I asked coldly. Finally, the reality hit her. There was no escaping this. With a gasp and a sob, she fell to her knees and began to kowtow, over and over, forehead slamming into stone. I'm sorry, she cried. I was wrong. I killed you. I'm sorry. Blood ran down her face. She looked up, waiting for me to stop her, but I said nothing, because no matter how much she bled, no matter how loud she screamed, my father wasn't coming back, and I had nothing left to say. She didn't stop until she was nearly unconscious, forehead bloodied, breath ragged. That's when I finally turned and walked away, face blank, heart frozen over like stone beneath frostbite. I wasn't done, because the final nail in my father's coffin hadn't just been Victoria, was Ethan, the golden boy. It was his idea to freeze my account. He was just as responsible for my father's death, maybe even more, but a poser like him, he was easy to bait. All it took was one careful setup. He fell for it hook, line, and wire transfer. While Victoria was scrambling to save her company, Ethan betrayed her and ran, fleeing the country with a suitcase full of stolen millions. She tried to chase him down, reported him to the police, even stalked his family's home. But it was too late. He'd already whisked them all abroad. I stayed quiet. Behind the scenes, I used a rigged gambling ring to draw him in and bleed him, dry one swipe at a time. Until one day, Ethan stared at his bank app in disbelief. Everything was gone. Still, I wasn't finished. I tipped off the authorities. They tracked him down, dragged him back, and locked him up with no chance to pay his way out. Justice delivered quiet, clean, and final. As for the money, I gave every cent to an orphanage, a small offering for the pain I'd carried. Victoria, now broke and humiliated, was shoved toward a marriage her parents had arranged for a stack of money and a coal baron. She begged me once, cried that she didn't want to be sold off, that she was still in love, that she regretted everything. But she had made her choices, and they had consequences. Cameron asked if I felt sorry for her. I didn't even blink. Not even a little. And then, like fate, refusing to leave quietly there, she was standing in front of me again, wearing the same white dress she wore when we first met. It didn't fit the same anymore. Her face was painted to hide the ears, but nothing could cover the desperation in her eyes. Save me, she whispered, Like she used to, I said nothing. Tears ran down her face as she reached for me. I know I was wrong. I know I hurt you. I've been trying to atone. You haven't moved on. I know you haven't. Please, just one more chance. But before I could speak, a tiny voice called out behind me, Daddy. A little girl came skipping out and latched onto my leg. Victoria's eyes went wide. Bax, your daughter. The girl frowned at her. Grandma, don't touch my daddy. My mommy will get mad. Victoria staggered back, pale as snow. And just then, like poetry, my wife walked over Radiant.com, effortlessly beautiful. She smiled and slid her arm into mine, then turned to Victoria with the ease of a queen addressing a commoner. We're waiting on you, she said to me. Dinner's getting cold. The contrast was impossible to ignore. My wife was everything Victoria used to pretend to be, but never was. Victoria's lips trembled. Is that your wife? And child? She whispered. Broken. Cameron, nearby, cleared his throat with a knowing smirk. I looked at her one last time and answered simply, yes. Her knees buckled and she collapsed on the pavement, right outside the hotel. She tried to follow, but security blocked her path. Before she could even make a scene, her parents swooped in, berating her for ruining everything, reminding her she was a failure, that she needed to come home and do what they told her. Inside, my daughter was already laughing in Cameron's lap. Uncle Cam, was I good? He smiled, ruffled her hair. You were perfect. You all were. He'd orchestrated this reunion, pushed me to move on. I hadn't believed in love anymore. Until I did. Years later, I was out shopping with my wife and daughter. Life was simple, warm, joyful in the little ways. And then I saw her. Victoria. Gray, now tired, standing on a sidewalk selling candied skewers for $2 a stick. Her son, cruel, ungrateful, screamed that he wanted the newest phone, that she was useless, that she should have never had him. She saw me. I know she did, but she didn't say a word. Just turned away as tears slipped down her face. I kept walking, because I wasn't hers to recognize anymore. All I saw was my family. And that was the end.